it's important that as we evolve as individuals, personally, professionally, as leaders, that we continue to evolve the board, our support system, so we can continue to grow as leaders and people in general, to be quite frank.
Hey, it's Nikki Llewellyn Gregory, and you're on Gut Plus Science. You're in for a fast-paced, storytelling, action item-rich leadership growth experience. I hope you make this podcast a habit. I consider it a leadership mentoring tool. Learning together makes us better together, and that is how we change the world around us. Let's get to it.
Hey, it's Nikki back on Gut Plus Science. So most leaders are told to find a mentor. But what if we thought bigger? Definitely find a mentor. But imagine defining and designing your own personal board of directors. The mentors, the peers, the truth tellers, the challengers that shape your growth. That's what we're exploring on today's episode with Melanie Stuber. Melanie, I'm so excited that you're here. I know you spent years in corporate leadership before launching your own company just recently in the past couple of years. And Melanie, you've found firsthand the difference in having the right people aligned and around you, what that difference can make in helping you stay true to your values and navigate the goals that you set out for yourself and your vision and the tough decisions. So I'm so excited to dig into this because I really believe strongly in this topic. Let's start with you sharing a little bit about your story, about the why. Give us a little backstory. What does having a personal board of directors mean to you? And how'd you get here? Why are we talking about this topic? And why is it so important to build?
Absolutely. First of all, Nikki, thank you so much for having me. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. This is something that started with my own journey. So, as you mentioned, I was in corporate for over 25 years. And when I made the decision to transition to own my own business, I knew that was a significant change. And I also wanted to make sure that I surrounded myself with the right people to help me navigate that change, because while it was exciting, it was also scary, and you don't know what you don't know. So as I became intentional with building my personal board of directors, what I learned through that experience was I had a personal board of directors throughout my whole corporate career. Yes, I had the mentors and the coaches and the sponsors and peers, etc., and I wasn't being intentional with them. So as I was sharing my story, it gained interest in the community, and I learned through conversations with leaders at different parts of their journey, whether they were emergent to seasoned leaders, they wanted to learn more. So that's what prompted me to share more and to start talking about this topic at within organizations, at conferences, at universities, because I know the value of having my own personal board of directors. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for these amazing people that are in my support system. And I know the value it can help others. I often share with others that it's really important to know who you are and your strengths and to know your worth. And then look around you to understand who can support you, who can complement your strengths, because you don't have to be everything to everyone. That was a hard lesson I learned throughout corporate because I tried that and it wasn't successful. And so what I learned throughout the years is knowing who you are and your worth and being able to surround yourself can be really powerful.
So good.
So that's my why, Nikki.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to dig into the word intentionality. You said that was the difference. Once I learned that the switch flipped to be able to go in this other direction of a more meaningful circle around me. So I want to go there in just a minute and really learn from you. But before we do that, I want to give people an example of now that you have these new people around you, this intentional board, people that are bringing their strengths and you're bringing it to them. Can you give us just an inside look of what does that look like? Like, how is that different than in corporate America? You have this team and these leaders and these mentors, and that's good. That's good. In this realm now, with this intentional board you've built, how does that show up? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I know the power of mentorship. I'm an advocate of it. I'm in a number of mentorship relationships. I will share with you in my younger years, I always was interested in having a mentor. And I also will share with you that, especially in my earlier years, asking someone to be a mentor, they asked me the question, what do you need from me? Or what are your expectations? And I honestly didn't know. I just knew that it was important to have a mentor. So what I learned throughout, that's one example. What I learned throughout the years is what I said earlier. It's really important. It starts with you. So, and when I speak, when I work with clients, really want to start with who you are. What are your personal values? Because that's your North Star. That is the reason you make the decisions you make. And the reason when you make a decision that doesn't sit well with you, you know that maybe that wasn't the right decision. So knowing your personal values, because then that informs the characteristics that you look for in others. I also mentioned earlier, knowing your work, because again, knowing your strengths and then looking around and others and seeing who can complement that. And then what your goals are. So when we talk about the board, I always start with the person, who they are, to make sure that they're comfortable with knowing and understanding their personal values, their worth. The other part we talk about is advocating for yourself. Because when we don't advocate for ourselves, it's hard for others to advocate for us when we're not in the room. And so that helps to inform the why. Why do we want a personal board of directors? That comes back to that earlier moment, Nikki, when I mentioned when a mentor had asked me, what do you need from me? What were your expectations? And I didn't know. So I want to provide others with this foundation of helping them understand their why. So understanding their goals, again, their strengths, what are their growth opportunities? And then what are those skills, the expertise, the experiences that they're looking for in others? And that helps them to inform their why. And then they can start moving forward with looking at, this is what I want to look for in others. What are those characteristics that are important to me? So, for example, trust and vulnerability is important to me. So as I think about surrounding myself with those individuals in my support system, I want to make sure that not only do they have the skills and the expertise, those experiences that I'm looking for to help me to grow as a person, as a leader, I also want to make sure that they have that level of trust and vulnerability, because that's really important to me. So when I work with clients, we do go through that exercise of understanding what is the characteristics that are important to them, because again, that helps to inform who in their circle that would be a really meaningful part of their support system, their board of directors.
So good. I was going to share before we dive into learning your process or best practices for building the board. I've been in many of these groups over my time, and it's challenging to navigate the figuring out the right fits and then sustaining those relationships. So this advice is going to be gold today. I know I do have one group of my personal board that I've been with for a long time. And we have a nickname for ourselves, the Cams. I won't go into how we got that, but we, just as examples, we trust each other for introductions implicit. Anybody that any of my Cams would introduce me to, I'm going to take that meeting. I am going to most likely do business with someone that they recommend. I have had frustrating, angry, and bawling, crying conversations about relationships with kids. We have shared entire business operating systems that we've purchased for thousands of dollars with each other because, we want to just share with each other, right? We've experienced retreats. The last one we did, I think it was either Sedona or Tulum, like travel. I mean, they have become like family-like relationships. These have been years. But one of them is a CPA. One of them is a public speaker, amazing communicator. Another one is a very niche team building coach, leadership coach type, but very much in team cohesiveness, just as examples. And everyone has these strengths from a professional standpoint, but also life standpoints. Life standpoint, one of them is an incredible meditation trainer. Another one is detailed process and, learning how to sharpen systems. And someone else is really good with sales skills. And so, man, I can't tell you how much I love these people. And I know how hard it is to navigate, to find. And it doesn't have to be at the level of like, oh, we vacation together. It could be we have calls and it's virtual, but we share intimate things that feel like family like relationships that support us and all these different strengths. So just wanted to illustrate a little bit because I'm just such a fan. But I think building the board and how to do that and the process for sustaining it, there's so much to learn here. So when you think about you said intentionality, that was the key differentiator. Recruiting for your own personal board, how do you do that? How do you qualify, and what are you looking for?
Yeah. So to bring the last question full circle, the one thing I want to mention is going back to the word intention is when you're intentional with surrounding yourself with the right people, you don't feel alone. You don't feel like you need to do everything yourself. You know who you can reach out to. And that is the difference when you're being intentional with it. When you're thinking about those people who can complement your strengths, you know that when you're stuck, you get a sounding board, whatever that looks like, you know you can reach out to that person. So the process, you said, where do you start? You had asked, where do we start? So again, it's with the person. So I always start with understanding who we are. I talked about the personal values, knowing your worth. Are you advocating for yourself? That's foundational. The other part that I want to touch on is how are we cultivating relationships? I talk to people in organizations, one-on-one with clients, and I ask them, how are you networking with purpose and impact? And this isn't about trading business cards or getting connected on LinkedIn, which is really important. It's so much deeper than that. It's how are you being purposeful and networking with other individuals and having those meaningful, authentic conversations. And the second part, which is often what I feel maybe not as valued, I want to say value, but there's an opportunity, and that is the follow through. So once you meet someone at an event or have coffee with someone, how are you following through with that person? And I often share best practices on those follow throughs, those connections can be so valuable because that's all about building meaningful relationships. I can't tell you, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, I have relationships that I've built throughout my corporate career. And I also have really great relationships from people I've met, even with us in the last year, that I've gotten really close with because I've been intentional with following through, staying connected with them. And I often talk about those small acts of kindness go a long way. So even sending a thank you, whether it's an email, a note, whatever that looks like, to thank that person for their time, how meaningful it was to you, what you learned from them, and then checking in with them, whether it's you notice something that they accomplished or you reach out in a month, a couple months to let them know you've been thinking about them. That is so valuable because I end up being on the receiving end when somebody reaches out and they let me know that they've been thinking about me. That means a lot to me. That means that they value me, they care about me. So I often talk about, in addition to spending time on knowing yourself, cultivating those relationships, because that's very foundational to building your personal board of directors. So once we get to that point, then again, understanding our why. And that is a very personal decision. It looks different for everyone. It could be somebody early in their career who knows the value of having a board. It could be someone like myself who had a significant shift in my career. It could be somebody who's realized they know the value of having a board to help them through the everyday highs and lows. Whatever that looks like, understanding your goals, again, your worth, your growth opportunities, and what you seek in others in terms of their skills and expertise helps to inform your why. So then we look at what are those characteristics that you seek in others. We start with key areas such as, again, looking at surrounding yourself with those individuals who can help you to achieve your goals, looking at those individuals who not only help to celebrate you, they also challenge you in healthy ways. They advocate for you. And then looking at your board as an opportunity to diversify. So bringing people into your board with diverse perspectives, experiences, backgrounds. The more diverse your board is, the more enriching your experiences. And then lastly, and you touched on this earlier, Nikki, is it's about inviting people in that you can be vulnerable with, you trust, you have mutual respect, because building a personal board is not about just assembling people. You are investing in them as much as they are investing you. So it's really important to look at those people that you have already established a relationship where you know you can be vulnerable with, you can trust and have that mutual respect. And from there, we can look at the board roles. So I can go on and on. I'll pause for now in case you have some other thoughts, or if you let me to continue, I can talk about the board roles.
Oh, I can't wait to get into the board roles. I was just taking down some notes here that I wanted to share from things you've said and things I want to add or reiterate. So knowing our purpose as an individual and our strengths is so important first, because we have to be able to be of value to them too. We need to know, we have to articulate, like, here's where we're going, here's what we're working on, because we want them to be in relationship with someone that's going to help advance them and has shared, focus and things like that. So I think knowing our purpose and our strengths is so important. And then understanding what you need and want from strengths of others. And that might be where you're about to go with some of the board roles that I can't wait to learn about. And then we're proactively networking. I don't love that word. I used to run a networking company for 12 or 13 years. And I always fight it because it's so important and it's so part of who I am. But it's like, it's networking, but truly meaningful relationship building. Find those people, you got to know who you're looking for and then seek out. And sometimes you might get surprises from, the universe that pop up, right? But then I love that you said the follow through. The follow through is so important. And what that does is it builds trust deposits. Every time when you're like, I'm thinking of you, or I followed up with a connection or sent you what I said I was going to. And then the other part you shared is the practice of vulnerability. I, gave an example of our CAM group, and man, there's been very vulnerable moments, things that many other people don't know. That's a very, very long developed group. I'm not saying launch in and share all the details until you're ready, but coming with that openness and not like, got my suit and tie on, you know what I mean? So I love that. I just wanted to recap that. And now I can't wait to hear about the board roles.
So when I talk about the board roles, I talk about the key roles of your coach, mentor, sponsor, expert, peer, and this other category, if you will. So when I think about the different roles, your coach is that person that helps you to achieve a very specific goal. They're going to help you to, whether it's refine your knowledge or a certain skill to realize your full potential. Your mentor is the individual that's really looking for your long-term professional growth. They are going to share their experiences with you, their lessons learned. They're really interested in helping you develop over the long term. Your sponsor is going to promote you to others. They're going to be the person to open doors for you, and they're going to make sure that your talent doesn't go unnoticed. An expert is the person who's going to help you with your growth opportunities, whether it's a certain skill or knowledge. They're going to help you to develop that. Your peer is someone in a similar role, whether it's in your organization or in the industry, where you feel really comfortable developing each other, leaning on each other, being vulnerable with each other. And then there's this other category, and this is the person who plays such an important role in your life, and they might not fit nicely in these other categories, and that's okay. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be someone you admire in the industry. So when I talk about your why, the characteristics you seek in others, board roles, I always share and I emphasize that there's no hard and fast rules. It's really what works best for you. So when I talk about board roles, I share that it's more about the quality than the quantity. So I share that with these roles, you might have someone that plays more than one role. Maybe they're a mentor and a sponsor, and that's okay. I say also target maybe 5 to 10. If you have four because somebody plays multiple roles, that's fine. I often caution going more than 10 because it gets back to the cultivating relationships. Because again, you're investing your time in them as much as they are investing in you. So this gets back to more of that quality over quantity. And again, it looks different for everyone. So these are the guidelines. And I tell people, if you feel that you're supported and maybe there's one role that's not completely filled, that's okay. As long as you're feeling that you've got the right support system to help you where you are in your leadership journey. So when I think about the board roles, now that we have them, it's your accountability, which you touched on a little bit earlier when you were talking about the board. So again, it gets back to continuing to foster those relationships. These are individuals that you're investing in, they're investing in you. It's not a one way. It's also you reaching out and offering how you can help, how you can support, and also letting them know how you're progressing along the way. These are individuals, whether you have a formal board or an informal board, setting expectations. So giving them time to process what they need to help you with. So whether it's you are meeting with multiple people at once or you're reaching out to one person at a time, giving them sufficient time to prepare for that conversation, because the more they're prepared, the more they can help support you. And then one of the most important roles for your board members is providing you feedback. And so looking at that feedback as a growth tool. So keeping an open mind, being curious, asking questions to make sure you understand that feedback. And to the extent that it is relevant, I always say you might be getting a lot of feedback from your board, and that's okay. Prioritize what is going to help you to achieve your goals. You don't have to act on all the feedback because you're just one person. And always, always express gratitude because, again, they're investing time in you. So sharing your appreciation with them goes a long way for them to know that you value them. And to the extent you do act on their feedback, to let them know, how did it go? What were the lessons learned? What were the outcomes, results? And then to the extent that there are changes, because inevitably you start the year planning one way, having certain goals, and circumstances could change. To the extent that it's relevant, sharing that with your board so they can continue to support you meaningfully.
I love the specificity, the intentionality, and really understanding. You said something along the lines of, this might not be the way you do it, but you'll do whatever works for you. Like you're kind of pulling what's needed. It's not, this is exactly what every single person does this way. It's taking this framework to make sure that it's the way that works best for you. Like there's some flexibility in it. I just wanted to mention that because there's certain things that, like a process, it's like we follow A through Z. And these are, I would call it, guidelines that help us to have the best experience on all sides, both sides. And I really like that. For that, like a little bit of flexibility, maybe, for example, the key support role, which I think was number 6, there's been this person since childhood, and it isn't something new. And you're like, oh, I might have overlooked that. That person is that already. I have that, and just, I don't know. So I love that. I love the flexibility. I love the guidelines here. And I have a few questions for you about the process and sustaining it, but you go ahead and you might cover them. So,
So when we get to the point where when I work with others to look at their network and I have them go through some exercises to identify the board roles, and we get to that point of, okay, they feel that they have the making of a board. So then we talk about the accountability. And then I say, okay, now once you have established, your board is not static, because as a person, you continue to grow and to evolve. You mentioned this earlier. I am not the same person, Melanie. I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. I was in corporate a few years ago. Now I'm a business owner. And so my needs are very different. And it's important that as we evolve as individuals, personally, professionally, as leaders, that we continue to evolve the board, our support system, so we can continue to grow as leaders and people in general, to be quite frank. And that might naturally happen. So if, for example, for me, that's shifting from corporate to owning my business, that's a natural transition where my board looks very different. So that's part of it. What I also recommend to individuals is take a look, once you've established your board, take a look at your board at least annually. So you think about the time of year that you set your goals. Most of us set our goals by the beginning of the year. And so that's a really good time as you think about your goals. Are these people the same people? Are these people going to help you with your goals, or do we need to make some changes? And so I would say at least once a year, and when there's a significant change in your life, personally and or professionally, look at your board, because again, it's really important as you evolve as a person that you evolve your board so these people can continue to support you. And I have had questions in the past from individuals of, how do I have that conversation? And so I do share talking points with individuals. And really what it comes down to is expressing gratitude and also mentioning that while not to overuse the word, their role has changed in your life, that doesn't mean you're not going to stay connected or that you don't value them. You can continue the relationship. It will just look a little different. And so the main point here is, once you've established your board, just like everything, you're going to continue to evolve it and to grow it. And it could look very different even next year, depending on how you grow as a person and as circumstances change.
It's so good. It reminds me of a quote that I learned in my probably late 20s, that people come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I was giving an example of a group that I honestly do feel is a lifetime group, right? Like this team that I have around me, the CAMs. But I've been in various, and I have a coach that I'm working with right now on something specific. It's for a reason. It's related to podcasting and something that we're working to learn, right? And I would call that an advisor. Like that's a board advisor. But just to remember that I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the goodbyes. They don't have to be goodbyes forever. It's like just in this one particular type of relationship. And it's okay to say it was a season or it was a reason. And it's okay. But sometimes we feel like we're going to hurt feelings but we're not doing the best for the greatest good. Right? That's really the core, is like, is this serving the greatest good? So I love that you said once a year, evaluate and, then figure out for both sides and nurturing the relationship, I think, for mutual outcome, right? That my podcast coach that I'm working with, there's a win in it for them, and it's for a time period. And at some point it's not going to be a win for them anymore. Right. Or for me. So I just think that that's really important. And you covered all of my questions that I was going to ask. I was like, you go ahead. But one question is your take on formalizing relationships and what that looks like. How does that work? So I find this contact that I'm looking for to help with public speaking, and they become a coach to me for that number one of the board roles you shared. Talk about how you develop this. Is it formal? Is it informal? What's your secret sauce there?
Yeah. So this goes back to whatever works best for the individual, because it looks different for each of us. So actually, I had the same question with a client yesterday when she said, we were talking about the board, and she said, I'm not very structured. And so we walked through that, and I said, that's okay. You don't have to be structured. Again, these are guidelines, and work with whatever works best for you. And so I've had conversations with leaders, individuals, the last year or so about where they're at in their personal board journey, learning from them. And I've had conversations with individuals who have a formal board. So they reach out, they ask individuals to be part of the board, they meet with them collectively, whether it's monthly or every other month. And then there's individuals like myself who has more of an informal board. So I reach out to individuals as necessary. I personally have shared with others that they play a role on my board because they have been investing time in me, and I want them to know that I appreciate it and I'm grateful for that. I think it really depends on, as people go through the exercises, I walk them through the exercise of board roles. What I share with them is do what's best in your situation. If you are reaching out to people, how you have this coach or you're this mentor, you're not maybe reaching out to them as frequently. That's up to you whether you want to, because sometimes people are like, do I say you're my coach or my mentor? I said, that's up to you, your relationship. I often err on the letting people know, because when they hear that they played an important role in your life, whether it's coach, mentor, sponsor, they feel valued. So again, I'm not here to tell people how to manage their board. I provide them guidance and what feels comfortable for them. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. And I love that. I love the flexibility. It's not a one size fits all, which is what I mentioned a little bit ago. There are ways that people bring these frameworks, and it's so like you can't go to D unless C was done, and in relationships, they're just different, right? And sometimes the value exchange isn't gonna, it's a human. And so I don't know. I love the flexibility in that. And I think it's a great answer. And you have to navigate, and having a coach like you to help do navigating, I think is really key. So
yeah, the one thing I will emphasize, and I can't emphasize this enough, is expressing the gratitude, regardless of your situation, is expressing the appreciation, because again, they're investing their time in you, and that is so meaningful. So you can never, again, express enough gratitude. So gratitude goes a long way.
I love that. Well, this has been so good. I know your website, it's cultivatethrive.com, right? And you have a number of resources. I remember reading a few of these before we even talked about doing this episode. I was like, oh, this is so good. So cultivatethrive.com. And then obviously connecting with you on LinkedIn. We can link those in the show notes. Is there anything else from a next step perspective or anything you want to link in the show notes that you wanted to share?
Yeah. So because of the interest in this topic and me speaking, I've also started hosting virtual personal board of director workshops. So workshop series. I started it in August. I'm running another one in October. I'm going to continue these to help to meet people where they are. The reason why I like the virtual workshop series is because it helps me to help others who may not be in my immediate area. And then I'm also working with organizations to bring workshops to the organization, because the one thing that I have shared, and I don't know if we touched on this today, is about the feeling of isolation. So our workplace dynamics have changed. I know as a solo business owner, it can be very isolating. And so having this personal board of directors has helped me feel connected, has been really meaningful because, again, I know who I can reach out to and I feel supported. And likewise, in our workplace dynamics, there's a lot of people working remotely, who are working hybrid. It's really important that we check in and make sure that they feel connected. And one way that managers, employers can help their employees is by helping them, empowering them with this personal board of directors. So my hope is that I can continue to work with organizations to empower the employees so they have this support system. So whether they're working in the office or hybrid or remote, they know that they've got this group of people to support them and they don't feel isolated. So a very long-winded response to say that I'm offering workshops virtually and in organizations.
That's great. And those are on your website on Cultivate Thrive?
They are not currently on my website. I have them in my newsletters. So one can subscribe to my weekly newsletters and they have access to contact me about the virtual workshops or to bring me into the organization virtually or in person.
I love that. Awesome. Well, check out the show notes to those links or hit up Melanie Stuber on LinkedIn. And Melanie, before we go, I just have a couple of quick lightning round questions for you. In the effort or emphasis of building relationships, just getting to know people for, I don't know, some of their favorite things. So just real quick popcorn answers. One book that changed your life or a recent read that just really like you felt the book. What book would you recommend?
So I'm currently reading The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. And the reason why I love it so much is it discusses women's role in history that I feel, as I learned in history, was downplayed. And these women play such a significant role during World War II to decode messages to help our soldiers, the allies. And I didn't know that through the traditional learning. And so this read is really fascinating, and the role that they played is significant. So that's why I like that read so much.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing. And then a place in this world could be in your home, it could be across the globe that fills your soul.
Yeah. So my family is really important to me, and our older son, we moved into college a month or so ago. And so what fills my soul is in my families together. So there's the four of us, my husband and I have two sons. And so whether it's here at home or whether we're traveling together as a family, that just fills my soul, it fills my cup because we're all so busy, right? And it's just really important to take that time to be present, be with your family. And especially now I cherish it even more now that we're not together all the time. So that's what fills my soul, Nikki.
I love it. And finally, third question for you, something you have coming up that you're really looking forward to.
So along the same theme of my son, we're going to visit him in a few weekends, and I'm really excited to see how he's doing, to visit him on campus. He's thriving in college, and we just are thrilled for him and looking forward to our visit with him.
So here's my truth you can act on for my conversation with Melanie Stuber around building our own personal board of directors. This is just such a good episode. And it made me look at this in a different way. I've always had a method for this for myself, but there's so much context and different examples and tools that Melanie brought. And here are a few of them. Start with self-awareness. Know your values, your North Star, your strengths, and your worth before reaching out to others. Be clear on your goals and growth opportunities. And then this is where advocacy begins. You advocate for yourself and look for those strengths that complement, that help you grow. Who are those people? So knowing ourselves first, that self-awareness is so key. And then building and sustaining relationships, networking with a purpose, go beyond the surface level connections and to cultivate the meaningful, authentic relationships, knowing who you're looking for, following through, the small acts of kindness, the checking in, the expressing gratitude, the sharing a resource, all of those things to sustain the relationships are so key. And I think many times we miss that follow-up and follow-through part. I loved that she shared these key roles on a board: the coach, the mentor, the sponsor, the expert, the peer, and then maybe another, like a family member or friend or unique influencer that came up in conversation, but having these different roles. And I believe she said aiming for maybe 5 to 10 different key leaders that you're working around as your personal board. And then we talked about formal versus informal structures of relationships with your board members, and it's open to discretion. So depending on what structure works for you, it doesn't always have to be formal or informal, but making sure that there is some expectation there with how the structure will work for you, and whether it is very formal or not, just defining the structure for how you will build and sustain this relationship. So good. I encourage you to go check out Melanie's virtual workshops and her newsletter. Follow her on LinkedIn. Lots of good stuff. And I really don't know anyone else that is educating us on this topic. Thank you again, Melanie, for joining us on Gut Plus Science. We'll see y'all next time.
We just left the world a little bit better. Now, go do something with it.